Ever wondered about the genius behind the words ego, persona, and introvert? Meet the master himself, Carl Jung. He didn't just shape psychology, he practically invented a new language we all speak today. His philosophy isn't confined to mere words, but it takes you on a journey that reshapes your outlook on life. Philosophy can be challenging, often presented with the assumption that you got the fundamentals down. But here is the good news. I've done all the research so you don't have to. Enjoy. Let's start by covering these elements on a surface level, and then we can dig deeper into each one. The ego. It's the conscious mind steering you through the waters of everyday life. A part of you that interacts with the world, makes decisions, and forms your identity. Think of it as the I in your thoughts and actions. The persona is your social mask. It's a version of yourself that you present in various settings. Like a professional in a workplace, a friendly companion in social gatherings, or a caring family member at home. Personal unconsciousness. This is a big box storing everything you've encountered, even the stuff you're not aware of. Is the reservoir of your unique life story. Anima and Animus are like the yin and yang within you. Anima represents the feminine aspects in a man, while the Animus represents the masculine aspects in a woman. They're the inner balances of complementary qualities that exist in every individual. Senex is your wise side. It makes you mature, rational, and disciplined. Think of it as a voice of wisdom that guides your decisions. Trickster is playful. It's the part of you that challenges norms and plays with boundaries. It brings up surprises and breaks routines. Peur Aeternus is the child trapped inside. Funny, but also impulsive. It's the source of your curiosity and creativity. The shadow is your hidden side. It holds elements that are unknown, rejected, or suppressed. It contains both negative and positive aspects of you that are often overlooked. Collective unconsciousness. Okay, this is gonna sound crazy, but this concept lies in the depth of most philosophies and religions. It's the shared pool of all human experience, containing symbols and archetypes that connect us all, influencing our thoughts, dreams, and cultural expressions. We're also going to be covering complexes and transcendent function. Transcendent function is your mind superhero. It gives you opposing thoughts and feelings, a force that helps you combine conflicting aspects of yourself. Complexes are like emotional knots in your mind. It happens when emotions and thoughts tightly connect to a specific experience or idea. They influence how we feel and act in different situations. The self. This is your core, integrating all of your aspects that form your personality. It takes you on a journey towards self-discovery and fulfillment. Alright, let's start with the boss inside your head. I'm obviously talking about the ego, as most of your consciousness sits here. It helps you decide what to pay attention to. It's your first point of reference that operates with 4 functions, and those are attitudes that can be rational or irrational, thinking and feeling, sensation and intuition, and orientation. They can be extroversion or introversion. Rational attitudes are based on reflection. It uses reasoning. Irrational attitudes are grounded in experience. Thinking is a function where you try to figure out how things relate to each other using logic and reasoning. This suppresses feeling because to reason properly, feelings such as agreeableness and cares must be disregarded. Feeling is like using your heart to decide how important something is. It's based on how much you care and value about things. Sensation is when you're made conscious with your sensory organs. It suppresses intuition because it's directed towards the realization of things that exist or have existed, excluding the things that have not come or will come. Intuition is when you're made conscious using patio-temporal negotiation. In simpler words, with imagination. It's all about possibilities. It represses sensation as attention must be kept moving to understand a larger space of negation. Extroversion is paying attention to lots of things around yourself, whereas introversion is paying attention to few things but much more deeply. I hope you could grasp these and form a link between them. Focusing on one aspect is always at the expense of suppressing its opposites. And most times, people totally focus on one aspect of each element because the more you focus on one side, the better you get at it. As this happens, the suppressed side actually gets emotionally charged, like giving it a hidden power. This has to be compensated somehow, and guess who does that? The unconscious. It transforms these emotional charges into complexes. What's the core function of the ego? For the best insight, let's turn our attention to Sigmund Freud's structural model of the psyche. Freud used three distinct agents to describe the basic structure of mental life. Those are the id, ego, and the superego. He used the German terms das Es, Ich, and über Ich. The literal translations are the it, I, and over I. The id is our animalistic side. It gives urges to fulfill our most primal needs, such as aggression and sexual drive. It acts to seek pleasure and avoid pain. The superego is our moral compass. It forms later in childhood due to upbringing and social influences. Ego is the mediator between them, forming a balance between the demands of its primal urges and superego's moral and idealistic standards. The ability to mediate between these conflicting demands is referred by the term ego strength. In everyday usage, people refer to the ego to represent a sense of importance, like he has a big ego. But this is really not the case. The ego cannot be big or small. Excessive self-centeredness is actually a problem that arises from imbalance of id and superego. Let's take a broader look at this. The ego aims to satisfy the id while reducing conflicts, pretending to care about social norms and cultures. The superego is constantly watching over ego's every move and punishes it with feelings of guilt, anxiety, and inferiority. In fact, it's built in a child not by its parents, but by the parent's superego. Connecting the dots, this serves as a vehicle for passing down traditions and judgments of value from generation to the next. However, the ego doesn't obey the master at all times. To overcome the pressures from the superego, it employs defense mechanisms. It can disguise or transform impulses that are seen as threatening. This involves strategies like denial, fantasies, rationalization, and much more. The ego also has defense mechanisms against the id, which are carried out behind scenes in a silent and invisible manner. This was introduced by Sigmund Freud's daughter, Anna. She highlighted that these mechanisms can only be observed in hindsight. Take repression, for instance. The ego quietly erases memories, pushing information out of awareness. There's a bit of a confusion here because Sigmund Freud sees the ego as the extension of the id, while his daughter treats the ego like a separate entity. If these topics interest you, I would recommend you to grab a copy of Anna's book. It's brilliant. Let's get back to Jung and continue with the persona. It's a crafted social mask to leave a particular impression on others while concealing the ego. The light side is social flexibility that the ego uses to engage in different spheres of life. The dark side is ego's identification with it, essentially losing a part of the self, which creates a conformist attitude towards the social role. Identifying with the persona is actually related to having a weak ego. When people become identical with the personas, they develop a very shallow and bitter personality that is usually based excessively with the concerns of what people think about them. It's very common in the society that we live in. The internet culture is based on cosmetic lives and creates an environment where the persona can easily fit into. A very common theme of the persona is pretending to be harmless, trying to deceive others that one is a good person. Obviously, this is a wrong strategy. The reality is, a good person is capable of doing harm but keeps that to itself. So, how can we approach this? First of all, we have to realize that excessive commitment to collective ideas is actually putting on these masks very tightly, which is a heavy burden to carry. The breakdown of the persona is necessary to find our true selves. This breakdown starts with confronting the superficial aspects of one's identity. This is done to confront deeper layers of an individual. During this period, the situations move away from the usual appearances and become direct with no imaginations or false cover-ups. As the persona falls apart, a sense of feeling lost arises, and it can create confusion and disorder. Jung refers to this breakdown as persona disintegration. Some people can restore their persona during this transformation. For example, if someone goes through some chaotic experience that stirs up deep, powerful feelings, they may react by trying to go back to their old familiar self. This is a negative persona restoration. Instead of addressing the deep changes happening inside, a superficial appearance is maintained. Obviously, this doesn't lead to personal growth but takes the person back to square one. Our goal should be to break down the persona and restore it positively. A recreation of a new and more viable persona. Developing a strong public image might feel unauthentic, like learning to play a role, but if one cannot perform a social role, it will suffer. The new persona should be aimed to be realistic and flexible but not collide with the society nor hide the true self. I noticed some spiritual and philosophical ideas that suggest living without a persona. Honestly, this is just unrealistic, blindly observing the world as a playground. This way of thinking can mess up your mental balance. If you're aiming to be the next Jesus or Buddha, that's your choice. But just so you know, if you're trapped in this mindset, you're probably a hopeless dreamer that is blind to the world. I know most of you are here for this. The shadow. It's a form of the suppressed id. It flows totally in the depths of your unconsciousness. Superego puts pressure on the ego, but the ego resists and forms this bad boy. The ego doesn't want to acknowledge it, as it was always punished by its ideals. And most importantly, the persona totally rejects the shadow. This can be seen clearly in hyper-agreeable individuals. The shadow is a blind spot in their psyche. There are negative and positive aspects that are trapped in it. It's an untapped power in each of us. People with low self-esteem, anxiety, or false beliefs can benefit the most from bringing the shadow to the consciousness. Integrating the shadow is unsettling. It's truly an unpleasant revelation. But when integrated into your character, you're opening a part of yourself that can be very forceful, strong, and dangerous. It's very useful to be dangerous, because if you can be dangerous, you often don't have to be. Generally speaking, it's weak men that rape. That's a very common theme. Stop by looking at yourself like a stranger, observing your resentments and bitterness with radical honesty. Going to the roots of your impulses and seeing what you're capable of. It can reveal your aggressiveness and fantasies that are unbelievably dark. You might find yourself looking in the mirror and running away screaming. Maybe you will not accept that you're capable of having these dark elements of yourself. But they're there. There's darkness lying in the core of all human beings. As a bonus, you can get some references of the shadow by paying attention to your dreams and visuals. Dreams are from the unconscious, and the dark sides of it usually represents the shadow. If you're willing to explore more about the persona and the shadow, check out Carl Jung's Collective Works, Volume 9. Personal unconsciousness. This is an easy one. It's a part of your mind that includes anything that is not presently conscious, but can be. It contains unique emotions, memories, and experiences that shapes your personality. Anima and Animus. Animus is the unconscious male psychological qualities that a woman has. It embodies aspects such as assertiveness, logic, and rationality. Anima represents the feminine qualities in a man's psyche. Acknowledging and integrating the anima can allow a man to achieve a greater psychological balance and understanding. Integrating the animus can allow a woman to achieve a more complete and balanced personality. The key is to recognize it when it manifests itself, and exercise our ability to differentiate it from ourselves. Trickster is like the prankster within you. It's known for challenging authority and bending rules. It disturbs norms, creating chaos and unpredictability. As a symbolic figure, Trickster represents the unconscious aspects of a psyche pushing against the boundaries set by the conscious mind. It's very closely tied to creativity and innovation. But keep in mind that excessive trickster energy may lead to destructive or harmful behaviors. Interestingly, Jung observed a strong connection between the trickster and schizophrenia during his research. Senex, also known as the wise old man, symbolizes the internal reservoir of wisdom within an individual's psyche. It functions as a mentor, providing valuable insights for both psychological and spiritual journeys. It manifests itself in fantasies and dreams. Peur Aeternus embodies the quality of eternal youth. It represents the inability to fully grow up. It's associated with positive aspects such as creativity, spontaneity, and a sense of wonder. On the flip side, it can result in avoiding commitment and responsibility. Integrating this to one's consciousness is necessary to allow a balanced and complete personality. Over-identification with it can hinder personal growth, and when not integrated, it can become a shadow aspect, leading to challenges in relationships. Complexes. They're like the emotion knots in your brain. Complexes emerge around emotionally charged issues or experiences. They influence our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. They're activated by triggers such as specific situations, people, or events, and most of the time result in reacting irrationally. Recognizing and integrating complexes is a crucial step towards becoming one's true authentic self. To identify and label complexes, start by observing yourself and others' personality shifts across different settings, and try to link patterns of change to specific contexts. Building on this concept, British psychotherapist John Rowan expands this notion, referring to these complexes as sub-personalities functioning like different personas. You can literally consider them as independent beings, each with its own traits. Some of the common complexes include inferiority complex, God complex, and victim complex. Transcendent function. It's the recognition and acceptance of inner conflicts that arise within the psyche. When we experience inner conflict, opposite elements within the psyche are in tension. These manifest through conflicting thoughts and emotions. Jung proposed that the psyche evolves to a higher level of consciousness when individuals hold and understand tension, instead of choosing one side over the other. This goes beyond logical thinking, but rather taps into the creative potential of the unconscious. Dreams can represent the integration process, providing insights to the conflict and the potential resolutions within the psyche. So yeah, be willing to explore and embrace the irrational and paradoxical aspects of your psyche. Collective unconsciousness. According to Jung and numerous philosophers, there's an unconscious part of the human psyche that is shared by all human beings. This contains experiences, memories, and symbols. He believed that symbols and dreams and cultural expressions are manifestations of the collective unconsciousness. And this goes beyond cultural and individual differences. It can evoke powerful emotions and insights, particularly in the realms of art, literature, and self-discovery. Integration of the collective unconsciousness involves a contribution to self-realization that develops a complete and balanced personality. If you enjoyed this video, you'll love my video on decision-making emotions. It's packed with scientific insights that align with some of the concepts we've discussed here. Bye.